The Dodgers a strike away from a championship, from a proper celebration. Start the party, Los Angeles! Your Dodgers have won the World Series!
I love LA. We love it. I love LA. We love it.
Hello again, everyone. Welcome to Calimesa Insider. I am Will Kolbow, City Manager for the city of Calimesa. It is the beginning of November now, episode number 31. And as we are recording this, we are only 4 days away from Election Day, this Tuesday, November 5th. But before I get to talking about that, we're actually going to talk about community services on today's episode. But before I get to that, something community services related that I want to talk about, and that is our trunk or treat that took place last night. It was the second one that we've done, and it blew me away for a few reasons. Number one, if you were there, I was there. I had my car open as one of the trunks that you got candy from. I was the bowling pin. I think I've described that on the show before, that I'm a big time bowler, and I've been doing it for most of my life. Carrying about a 230 average right now, so I figured it would be a fitting costume for me and a fitting theme for my trunk. So I did that. So if you saw the bowling pin, that was me. But I will say, like, the attendance was really solid. I would say we had, I don't know, 300-400 kids plus their families. So if you add in their families, maybe we're talking about close to 1,000 people that came through in that 2-hour period. We were only open from 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. And, you know, we always think about trick-or-treating as something that's done at night. You wait for the sun to go down before you go out. But there were people lined up down the block to get into the park prior to us opening at 5 o'clock. And there was still plenty of daylight left at that point. And so it was a pretty cool thing to see. I was actually having a conversation with one of the council candidates that was there last night, Eric Cundiff, and then we're just chatting away, and all of a sudden we noticed that there were kids that were starting to come out. So he's like, "Oh, we got to go. They're starting already," and so he had to dash back to his vehicle to start handing out candy, and I did as well, and I had to rush to put on my costume too, because I hadn't even put my costume on yet, because the costume was kind of hot. I will say it was warm, but actually that was kind of nice because it did end up getting pretty chilly last night. But the big thing for me that stood out was the amount of effort that went into the path that so they did like a haunted walk along the walking path at Summerlin Park that the staff put into this. All of our staff and some of our contract staff as well built all of it from the ground up. They bought the stuff, they put it all up, and then they had to stay afterwards and take it all down. So the amount of work and effort that went into that event for our community had me almost in tears, to be honest with you. Just the amount of effort that they've done with, again, such, very few resources relative, it was on par with some of the things that I saw at my previous city that had an entire community services department at their disposal with, literally hundreds of people, including part-timers, helping out with these type of events. And they were able to pull it off with a fraction of that number of people. And so it is truly amazing. And I really want to give kudos to our staff. And that's why, when I see people unfairly attacking staff, as I talked about last week, whether it's our own city staff or people we contract with, just because they don't, city of Calimesa is not on their paycheck doesn't mean that they treat this community like we do as employees or as you do as residents. They love this community. They take good care of this community. And it doesn't matter if their paycheck is from the city of Calimesa or not. That's why I so adamantly will defend anybody that works for us, because they are all doing the best job they can for you. And I don't even think people fully realize the amount of effort that they put in to make this community the way it is. They really do. And I can't thank them enough. I want to thank them from the bottom of my heart for all of their efforts. Yeza Benson, Madi Shakir leading the way, all of our public works guys. And even the advertising leading up to the event was pretty outstanding. If you subscribe to our Instagram page, well, first of all, if you don't, you should. So even if you are not an Instagram user, sign up to our Instagram, if anything else, to follow the city of Calimesa. So go to calimesa.gov/Instagram or download the Instagram app and search for City of Calimesa, and you will see our Instagram page, and you'll see the latest post, which was the advertisement and a video that our crew put together to promote the Truck or Treat. It's just so much creativity out of this crew, so much effort, and I gotta say, I don't know how else I can express my appreciation. There's no words are not adequate to describe how much I'm impressed with these people. So please check it out again, calimesa.gov/Instagram. Okay, so I mentioned that the election is only 4 days away, and the Calimesa Senior Center is an official voting center. And in-person voting will begin tomorrow, Saturday, November 2nd at 9 a.m. The voting center will be open on Saturday through Monday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., and on Election Day Tuesday from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. If you got your ballot and you haven't voted yet, you can still mail your ballot in. As long as it's postmarked by November 5th, Election Day, you're good. If you get in the mailbox by Monday, that should be fine. But if you don't want to take any chances that maybe your ballot gets mixed up in the mail somehow, the post office has worked really well. I mailed my ballot in, and I got a response. I got a text message because I signed up for alerts that my ballot was received and it's being counted. So I'm good to go. So if you haven't done that yet, you can always turn your ballot in either to the Senior Center during the hours I just mentioned, Monday through Friday, or 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. tomorrow the 2nd, Sunday and Monday, or on Tuesday, November 5th from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. You can also turn it in to City Hall during normal business hours. So that's this Monday or Tuesday from 7 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. So there's plenty of options for you when it comes to voting, whether you want to bring the ballot that was mailed to you, or if you want to participate in in-person voting, you can do either one. Not both, though. Remember, one vote. One person, one vote. Just remember that. This coming Monday is our next city council meeting. It'll take place at 6 p.m. at the Senior Center as normal. To take a look at the full agenda and all the related staff reports, visit our website at calimesa.gov and then click on the Agendas and Minutes button. A couple of items of note on this Monday's agenda. Both our sheriff's captain and our fire chief will be giving their monthly reports summarizing the month of October in their respective departments. The city council will be reviewing options for the city's state home investment partnership program funds. So we have about $352,000 of funds that can be used for the home investment partnership program. It is money that was originally provided through the state, and so the money that we have now is program income. And what program income basically is that the program we had previously was the owner-occupied rehabilitation program, and that was money that we got from the state that could be used for that program. And it would be basically loans to homeowners there was very, very specific criteria that they had to meet. And they would get money to do rehabilitation on their homes. It was a low income program. And usually what happens is a lien's placed on that property. And when it sells, the lien is paid off. The loan is paid off. When that money comes back in, it's program income that is then supposed to be used for the same home investment partnership program. It doesn't have to be used for the rehab program specifically. So there are 3 programs that this money can be used for. The owner-occupied rehabilitation program, as I mentioned, a first-time homebuyer program, and a tenant-based rental program. And so rather than go through each of those in detail right now. They're described further in the staff report, along with staff's recommendation, and then the council will then have a discussion. They may decide what they want to do with it. They may not. They may ask staff for more information. So not sure where that's going to go, but we're presenting the options that they have, since this money's been sitting there for a while. So we want to make sure that the council, number one, is aware of it. Number two, they're aware of the options that are available. Again, these are the three options. Those are the only three options that this money can be used for. So just keep that in mind. But if you want to know more about that, check out the agenda packet that I talked about previously. The City Council will also be considering a contract with Onyx Paving Company for our next round of pavement rehabilitation. And this will be funded through a combination of American Rescue Plan Act funds, Measure A funds, and the General Fund. The General Fund is contributing about $1 million to the project. The streets selected for rehabilitation were picked following a discussion by the City Council at the January 16th City Council meeting. Once those streets were picked, we went to work on getting the design and engineering done, and then once those plans were completed, we put it out to bid. Onyx was the lowest responsive bidder, meaning that they had the lowest price and bid the job properly. So therefore, they are recommended by staff for approval. By the way, all the bids we received were valid bids. So they were indeed the lowest bid of the 6 that were received. The streets that will be rehabbed as part of this work are listed in the staff report and in the agenda packet, which again can be found at calimesa.gov and clicking on agendas and minutes. Okay, so let's talk about community services. So when you talk about community services, there are a variety of things that can mean. Typically, that encompasses parks and recreation, and sometimes you'll have just a parks and recreation department, and that's what they focus on. But when you have community services, there are other things that go into that as well. So, after school programs that they might fund, maybe trails are also usually a part of that, encompassed in there. Our senior center obviously is something that is included in that, but we get a lot of questions. We do get questions. We do have a Parks and Trails commission, Parks, Trails, and Community Services Commission. That is a 5-member commission that is appointed by the City Council. And so just keep that in mind, that it is a commission that's available. If it's something you want to sign up for as a commissioner, you want to be a commissioner of, those are, again, each council member gets an appointment to that commission. But I think it's important to look at the history of community services within the city of Calimesa. And again, it's really challenging for a city our size to fund a full parks and recreation department, especially when you have cities on either side of us that have pretty robust parks and recreation departments. So before we were even a city, and before Yucaipa was a city, Yucaipa had a special district, a parks and recreation district. And so that district received property tax funds and was specifically formed to be the services, to provide parks and recreation services to the Yucaipa area. And on this side of the county line, in Riverside County, we had a county service area that part of its responsibility was parks and recreation services. And what they did is they actually contracted. So the county, in the county service area, that is run by the county, the Board of Supervisors. And it's just a way to distinguish property taxes and property tax allocation to a certain area for specific purposes. It's akin to a special district, but it doesn't have its own board. It's still administered by the county and is governed by the Board of Supervisors. So that's really the difference between a county service area and a special district. And so the service area that was serving Calimesa at the time contracted with Yucaipa's Park District for many, many years before incorporation. And so, as a fun fact, actually, Avenue I Park used to be called Calimesa Park, and part of our funds were used to build that park. Services available in Calimesa before incorporation were senior services. So the senior center was actually built in 1988 by the county before we even became a city. So that's kind of an important thing to remember too. So Yucaipa incorporated about a year before we did. They incorporated in 1989. We incorporated in 1990. Both cities incorporated for similar reasons because mainly there were a variety of reasons, and a lot of times why cities incorporate is to have more local control over land use decisions and services in general, so that they want to be able to govern themselves. But sometimes there are other motivations. In the case of Yucaipa and Calimesa, as you probably know, there are a large number of mobile home parks in both cities. And so they wanted to have some kind of rent control. And so seniors in those communities at the time were very concerned about rent increases. So they wanted to form their city so they could implement mobile home rent control, which both cities have to this day. So that was a big reason why the cities incorporated, along with land use stuff and things like that. But after incorporation, Yucaipa, the city of Yucaipa now, which inherited the Parks District, so the Parks District became a part of the city of Yucaipa. So from day one, they already had a dedicated tax and infrastructure in place for parks and recreation services. So they inherited that structure into their city. And when they incorporated, they made the decision that they no longer wanted to contract with Calimesa, especially after we had incorporated. So, and as a matter of fact, that's why Calimesa Park was renamed Avenue I Park, because they were trying to disassociate with that connection. So Yucaipa, still today has a very well-run community services department run by Megan Wolf. She's a fantastic person and employee over there. And so she does a really, really good job with their programs. But what does community services look like today in Calimesa? Well, we still have the senior center, and that's centered around activities at the senior center, which we contract with Family Services Association for. They also administer our meal program. And that was actually the first thing that we did with FSA when we first brought them into the city, was to administer the meal program. Then we added in the activities and running the day-to-day of the senior center on top of that afterwards. So it used to be, back in the day, a City of Calimesa employee was the manager of the senior center, and then we eventually outsourced that, and that's what we have to this day. Also, obviously, our community services includes parks. We have 3 parks now. Creekside Park off of 7th Place, just south of County Line Road, was our first park. And then it was a result of a donation to the city from the previous landowners. And then 4th Street Park opened in 2015, I believe. And it's actually going to be expanded. We're hoping to get that construction started soon. The contract has been awarded quite a while ago, actually. And of course, just like a lot of other projects that we've dealt with, Edison is our delay right now. So we're really thrilled about that. And then about a year ago, we opened our 3rd park down in the Summerwind community of Summerwind Park. One thing that we've really started to ramp up on over the last couple of years is events in community services. So we kind of started off with our tree lighting. That was kind of our first big event that we did. And then we've really expanded into other things, including the trunk or treat last night. We've done popsicles in the park. We've done Earth Day events. We've done community cleanups. And then later on, I'll talk about movies in the park as well, because that has to do with our partnerships that we have with other agencies. And then, so how does staffing work with that? Because I talked about the fact that we have limited resources, and we don't have a formal Parks and Recreation department where we have even one employee that's focused solely on that endeavor. So it's a combination. It's a team effort, just like a lot of things that we do here. Anything that's not a specific department that has to be kind of a collective thing is done by other people. So, for example, our administrative staff, they do a lot of the event planning, they build props. So if you walk into City Hall prior to a big event that we're doing, you're going to see stuff for these events kind of laying around, because our administrative staff up front, when they're not busy doing something else in their day-to-day job, when they have a little bit of time, they'll spend a little time building props, putting things together, creating things for these events. And so they try to just kind of weave that into their day as much as they can. And then Yeza Benson kind of oversees the planning of it, along with Madi Shakir, our public works director. So she's heavily involved with event planning and coordination. And then our public works crew handles park maintenance, number one on the maintenance side, on the park side, But on the recreation side, they also assist in building of props and setting up for the event. So we closed down the park yesterday for the whole day because pretty much from the early morning yesterday on Halloween, we were gathered everything up to transport down to Summerlin Park from City Hall and get everything set up. And then so they were down there hours before the event, setting up the event. And then they had to spend several hours last night tearing everything down. So just a very monumental effort from a very small group of people. So we have 5 people on our public works crew. We have 2 administrative staff up front, plus Yeza and Madi, and that's it. And then a little bit of help from Heather Sturgeon, who's our accountant now, but she used to work in administrative services. So she helped out with things too. But it was definitely a big time group effort from our staff, and so just amazing what they can do. So they're doing a lot. We're trying to do more and more in community services every year because that is something that gives the community a sense of place, a sense of identity in their city, and being able to bring people together is part of what a city should do for its residents. And so that's what we're trying to create. But as you know, we only have limited staff. So when you look at recreational services, if there are things that we're not doing right now, for example, for like classes and things like that, a lot of cities contract with people like karate studios, dance studios, things like that for classes. You can go through the city of Yucaipa. They offer the same prices for residents and non-residents. They used to have a lower price for their residents than they did for non-residents. A few years ago, they got rid of that, so everybody pays the same amount. So if you want to check out what the city of Yucaipa is doing for that kind of thing, you're welcome to do that. That's a service that we've talked about actually partnering and actually sending out their newsletter, branding it for Calimesa, but still advertising Yucaipa's activities. That hasn't come to fruition yet, but I think it's still something that we're going to consider, down the road. We also have a formal contract with the Beaumont Cherry Valley Recreation and Parks District for mainly right now, we're focusing on maintenance at Summerlin Park. So they will go and open and close the park every day on their normal rounds. They'll restock the bathroom and clean it up a little bit if it's needed at the time that they open the park. Things like that. They also provide playground inspection services. They do have a certified playground inspector on their staff. Our public works crew is working on getting certifications in that area as well. We also partnered with the Parks District for Movies in the Park. So our Movies in the Park event, the main, most of the heavy lifting was done by the Beaumont Cherry Valley Recreation and Parks District. So they secured funds from Supervisor Ixchel Gutierrez's office to put the event on, and then they rented all the equipment, the movie. They did the props and the decorations. They booked the vendors that were there for that event and coordinated a lot of it, and coordinated with our staff as well. But they did most of the heavy lifting on that. So those are the kinds of things that we're trying to do too. So to the extent that we aren't able to do it, it's just too much for us to take on. We're working with partner agencies to try to bring more of those services to our residents. And so we're looking at other ways that we can work more closely with our neighbors and with other complementary districts that do provide those services to be able to bring those to our community. But as we go forward, as we continue to grow, because again, we have over 7,000 homes that are entitled that are yet to be built. So if you look at that, right now we're a city of 11,000 people. Eventually we're going to be a city of 35,000 people down the road. So as we get bigger, we endeavor to have our own department. But there are a couple of challenges to that right now. Right now, even if we have the growth, I don't have anywhere to physically put anyone. So if I wanted to hire more staff, if I had money to hire more staff, which we don't, but as we grow, we will. Where are they going to work? I don't have anywhere to work. If you ever want to visit City Hall and you want to take a tour of it, let me know, because you'll see that we're already kind of stretched to the max when it comes to size. Nobody has a grand size office that is just huge and flowing. I mean, I'll tell you, my office in my previous city, even though I wasn't the city manager even, was much bigger than the office that I have now. Very, very humble accommodations that we have for City Hall. We're in 2 modular buildings, and then expansion of the senior center. We actually built an annex into an expansion into the senior center to house additional office space. But that space is also maxed out. So, we do eventually need a bigger City Hall so that we can turn around and provide these services to our community. So what's that going to take? Well, it's going to take a larger tax base in order to have both the funding to both support the services, because as you grow and you have those crew, that there's a cost there. There's a cost for additional services. There's a cost of maintenance and maintaining those services, and then the actual building those facilities themselves also takes growing the tax base. So that has to happen in order for us to expand upon those things. But in the meantime, that's what we're trying to leverage relationships and leverage what we have. And but it's nothing. The big reason that these things go and that we're able to do as much as we can right now is because of the monumental efforts that our staff is putting in today. This city is lucky to have such dedicated folks working on their behalf every day. I know I say it so much, and I know I sound like a broken record, but it is absolutely 100% true. And that's why I continue to say it. So that's what our community services looks like. And so I just wanted to give you a glimpse into that. So if you have any questions on that, if you have questions on anything, please reach out and let me know. But in the meantime, that's going to wrap it up for this episode of Calimesa Insider. The next city council meeting, again, is this Monday, November 4th at 6 p.m. at the Norton Young Love Senior Center. You can attend in person or watch on the city's YouTube page by going to calimesa.gov/YouTube, then clicking on the live tab. Also wanted to remind you again that the Senior Center will be a voting center starting tomorrow, November 2nd through Election Day, Tuesday, November 5th. This is the Calimesa Insider Podcast. I am Will Kolbow, and I will talk to you again next week. Have a great weekend.